Hello and welcome to Runners World Podcast with me, Rick Pearson.
And me, Ben Hobson.
Today we're talking about life after the marathon.
Tears of joy and anguish trickle down Rick's face as he considers what does he do after a marathon.
The marathon blues have struck, but we're here, aren't we, to offer some really practical and uplifting suggestions at what you could sort of be spending your time on now.
Yeah, and you can still go running, but how are you going to do it? That's what we're discussing. And we're joined by our friends and colleagues, Ali Ball and Rachel Boswell, who have done lots of racing recently.
They've got the answers.
And they've got the answers to this very important question.
I don't know if you know, Ben, but the London Marathon happened on the weekend.
Yeah, it did. You're right. I saw it. I went down and watched and everything.
You were there?
I did. I was there.
I bet me and Rachel had a better view of it than you.
No, I know you did. It's a weird lead into our brag about being on the radio. Go on, tell everyone.
We were on BBC London, but which is exciting enough in itself.
Yeah.
But on board or aboard the Cutty Sark itself, the great ship.
Were you whistled aboard?
No,
we got a lift up.
Got a lift up. Yeah, it wasn't very pirate ship like.
That's not, is it?
It's great.
Yeah, it does provide a good view.
There was a great view. I couldn't quite see over the edge, so I had to stand.
You would have made are you saying you would have made a terrible pirate?
I had to stand on some kind of ship part to see.
Yeah,
but otherwise it was great.
But you saw all the elites come through.
Saw the elites come through, which was really exciting, and saw some amazing fancy dress. I don't know what your favourite was, but mine was man carrying mountain bike on shoulder.
That's a new one.
That's really hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've done that like up the stairs, haven't you? Imagine 26 miles like that. It was rapid as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a like just everything about that screams like terrible spine.
Yeah.
Like really like one-sided. You're switching every mile, but you're going to get that sounds.
The temptation to get on the bike is huge as well, isn't it?
I hadn't even thought.
Wait a sec. You clocked a 4-minute mile at mile 25.
Yeah, just cruise around.
Yeah.
There was someone dressed up as a shark, and
Yep.
their kind of fins were sticking out. And I think it was accidental because everyone was giving them a high five.
Now, if you want to go through the best costumes at the marathon, take a 7-year-old. So I took my 7-year-old, and he was uninterested in most of the running, apart from people who were dressed up. So he was really like, whoa, look at that one. That was the real, there's a man with a cone on his head. Like, he thought that was all bonkers.
No, we had the same chat, because I was always a bit like, I think fancy dress is a little bit showy. Like, it's a bit like, look at me. And I've always thought that a little bit. Like,
yeah.
But then I saw a new light with kids, and it's like, actually,
It's the best.
people get a load from it, actually.
So I tried to like engage him with the whole event by making him hand out sweets, which basically meant he got to eat lots of sweets.
Yeah.
And he's sort of doing his thing, and like, oh, well, someone took one. That was exciting. But the rest of the time, he's sort of just waiting there. But the costumes, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Man with fridge.
Yeah.
Well, I think last in his mind forever. He's got a fridge on his back.
He was fast.
Yeah.
He was fast. He was near like the 3:40 pace. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And you only get it at London too. So I think you can sort of
Yeah,
allow
okay.
it. If every race there was
Rick.
a man with a fridge, it would get a little bit old.
Yeah, Rick, you can allow it, you big meanie.
No, I'm saying I was wrong. I was wrong about
All right,
it.
fine.
I was wrong about it.
Spirit of London.
Spirit of London. Let's quickly talk about the elite race then.
Yeah, it was really good.
Exciting stuff.
Really good
yeah,
stuff.
some close finishes. So wins for Kenya's Alexander Munyao in the men's and his compatriot Perez Jepchicha, who you've met.
Yeah,
Kenya.
if anyone wants to listen back to an exclusive I had with her from my time in Kenya, there's a podcast. So just go back into the archives and check out our interview with her, because it was very interesting. It was a good little insight into the world of an elite runner in Kenya. But yeah, the whole elite race. I mean, the final coming around the bend.
Yeah.
And the jostling for position and the fighting off the corner to sort of and then the sprint and everything. And her reaction was great. I really liked it. There can often be like a cool, calm, collected. I've crossed the line, and Sifan Hassan obviously last year was just like, oh my god, and similarly this year you've got like, oh my goodness, and like on the floor and like I kind of. Elites kind of there's perception that always they're very clinical.
Yeah.
Or something. And
good to see some emotion.
And it was actually like, when you see that emotion come through.
Can you tell us about the women's only world record? Because this is getting talked about a lot.
Yes.
Can you just explain to anyone because there are a lot of different world records. It's almost like, well, hang on a second, that's not the world record. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. So the women's only world record can be achieved at a race where only women take part.
Okay.
So it's so in London you can get the women's only world record because the elite men have a separate race to the elite women. They set off at different times. And in the elite women's race, they only have female pacers. So basically, no men can be involved in that race.
Right.
And London is quite unusual in that it still goes by that format, which is why it's the women's only world record rather than the world record for women.
Yeah. Got it. It was. I mean, it was like, because then, similarly, everyone's like, "Oh, wait a sec, the women's world record's from Berlin," and it's like, it's a sort of like read the small print sort of world record, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, and then obviously with some good performances, particularly in the men's with the Brits.
Yep.
Emile Caresse coming in third, rocking the Casio like ourselves, Ben.
Yeah,
so that's
Absolute hero.
Yeah,
similarities.
I think
there.
he's really nice. I think he's like a really down to earth guy. A popular kind of performer.
I mean, there's a couple of things. His performance was, third fastest Brit over the distance ever.
Oh, second, I think.
Second.
Just behind
Second
Mo.
ever, yep.
Yeah.
My God, I'm rewriting history as we go. So second fastest ever. And like Rachel, he was mildly despondent. Like everyone else was just like, Mohammed was like, nailed it, and he crushed it. And everyone was a bit like, I could have done better.
Yeah, that's the thing. So Mohammed, another a fellow Brit, he came fourth in 2:07. Like both of them got within the Olympic marathon qualifying time, so they're almost certainly going to be at the Olympics. Mohammed was like, quote, over the moon, and then Emile Caresse finishes about a minute quicker, and he's like, yeah, I'm happy to come third, but I'm a bit disappointed. I wanted to go quicker. It was a bit windy out there, and I was like. And obviously everyone's like, are you insane? But it just goes to show that he knows he can do better, which actually is kind of amazing but exciting.
Yeah. And also Ali, on a shoe techie point.
Oh.
So when he ran last year, he was running in the Takumi Sen.
Yeah, unusual choice.
Which was an unusual, that's like, even Adidas state, like that's a shoe that's a half marathon at most.
Yeah, he never runs in the Pro 3, does he? And then he's suddenly gone straight to the Evo Pro 1. So I don't know what happened in his mind this time that he thought, you know what?
Someone just said, you've got to wear that shoe.
Yeah, and he's gone for it. And we've ended up with a complete sweep of podium filled with Adidas. Men's first, second, third, all in the Evo Pro 1. Yeah. And then women's, we've got 2 Evo Pro 1s and a Pro 3.
It's almost a nightmare, that, because I really want to slag the Evo Pro 1, because I'm like, it's 450 quid. It's only made for like one race or maybe 2 races. But unfortunately, it seems to be an exceptionally good
The proof is in the pudding.
Let's say they've put them on the right feet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I'm yet to get my hands on it, but you wait.
Ali will be there, smashing PBs left, right and centre.
But yeah, I think... I mean that's a monopoly, isn't it? That's a complete monopoly of both podiums. It's actually quite an impressive feat, that one.
Yeah,
but good elite stuff.
Yeah, and maybe Caresse will get the British record sooner rather than later, possibly.
Well, I mean,
I think it's 2:05.10. I think so. He's got to knock about a minute and a half off his time.
Get that wind in the right direction. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. And how fast, of course, is London? There's obviously Paul has set a long-standing world record there, but it's not maybe as quick as Chicago or Berlin or Valencia. So there you go. Hey, look, let's move on.
You've done your race.
Yeah, congratulations.
You've got your medal. You're sitting pretty.
You're bragging.
What do you do next?
What's the next chapter after you do the marathon, Ben?
So we were sort of...
other than a blog.
Immediate follow-up Instagram
with your 80 race photos that you downloaded.
You bought your 80 race photos.
With your race recap, detailed race recap.
You've alienated all your friends. Yeah,
definitely part 1 race recap. More to follow. Follow link in bio. No. So I think that a lot of people get to this stage. They've come off the back of a large training block. Everyone's had a lot of structure. Running's been about a certain target. It all drilled down to one event. You've finished, right? So you're in this like heady post-race experience. You're very tired. You're very sore. The idea of running again probably isn't quite in your brain, but it will come back at some point, depending on how well your race went. And then there's also this sort of like, and we've talked about it before on the podcast and people maybe have read about it, but there is a sort of marathon blues. There's this sort of sense of like, oh, wait.
This big thing
has happened, and I'm actually feeling slightly down about it being over and all this sort of stuff. And we've all done races and felt that feeling where you've kind of achieved goal, and actually the journey there was the bit that was really satisfying, and the end result is a bit more like, oh, well, what do I do next?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So wanted to kind of like use a bit of professional advice, be it relating to...
Who are we getting in?
Well, no.
There were no professionals available today, so here we are.
So a bit of just general sort of like medical information on what the body does after a race, why returning to running as soon as possible isn't actually a worry for everyone. Like, people might be like concerned about losing their fitness and detraining, and there's actually quite a lot to suggest that you're not going to lose any fitness whatsoever. So all that hard work isn't going to get lost by you taking a week or 2 weeks off running. That doesn't change. So there's a bit of that. So I mean, that's it in summary. If anyone was ever like thinking like, oh well, I put in all that effort, I'm going to lose all my fitness.
Yeah.
You physically won't lose the fitness. Like, it just doesn't, that's not what happens to your body. And for very different things, your cardiovascular capabilities don't just diminish like that overnight.
Yeah, I think you get 2 weeks, don't you, with nothing.
I mean, just about, I mean, you know, there's actually a very good article on the Runners World website. I'll put a link in the bio.
Oh, fantastic.
Focusing on detraining. But, you know, that first week, everyone considers that they're going to lose loads of fitness, but there's no loss of fitness from any of the key cardiovascular measures, VO2 max, all of that sort of stuff in that first week. It's literally, it's fine.
Because we've got 2 people on the panel that we've chosen carefully who have done major races this year, right?
Yeah.
So Ali, you did, I mean, was it 5 days in Tanzania?
Yeah, 5 days Tanzania, 220 kilometres at the end of February.
And you were training for it loads. It meant a lot to you, you know, real personal reasons for doing it. How did you feel in the week after, and what have you done since? Because when did you finish? It was about a month ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a really weird experience doing something so big and then coming out of it. I think for me, my coach makes me, whatever race I do, take at least a week off, if not 2. So it was 2 full weeks off for Tanzania. But I'd say doing a big distance like that, I don't think you could have paid me to run in those 2 weeks. Like, I would walk past people running and I'd think, I don't want to be doing that right now at all. So it was kind of nice in that respect. I didn't really feel the FOMO. And then I'd say after that 2 weeks, I started looking at other people and thinking, oh yeah, I could give that a go now. And I started to miss it again. So I'd say it was good having that little break, and I think mentally as well, because it is such a demand on like your brain, the training for it, and just kind of gearing up for a big event like that I think I needed those 2 weeks to actually process what I'd just done as well. Because it's just, I kind of, even now, it's hard to comprehend it coming out the other side of it. So I think it was just that sort of processing in my mind and being able to look back and feel proud about it. And I think regardless of the distance that you run, that's why it's important to have a little break after a big event as well, is just to let it soak in and not go, right, well, that's done, I'm just going to go straight to the next event. And you've not even just acknowledged the big achievement that you've had.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, on that, like Russ Cook crossed the finish line of running across Africa, and within days was talking about the next big challenge. Now, fair play to him, if he's obviously got the impetus and the ability and the skills, but like, it does set quite a precedent for anyone who's done an event of their own, a challenge that they've got over it, to be like, oh wow, that guy ran across Africa, I need to have something lined up immediately. And I think that, like, again, personally, like, he that's his choice and he can do it, and that's his setup. Yeah. But I just sort of like, you can be the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Like,
you always get that question, don't you? People are like, so what's next?
Yeah.
And it's actually almost like there's no shame in saying, oh, I'm actually having a bit of time off at the moment, because that was very exhausting. Quite a lot on me. Nothing is what I'm doing next.
Yeah.
So I think we need to acknowledge that more.
Yeah. What about you after Boston? So this is going out, what, a week and a bit after you did Boston?
It was this time last week. I was running, literally, which is nuts. And I think Ali is completely right in that it's not just physically you need to recover, but mentally. I felt exactly the same as you. I think I went into Boston very excited, obviously very nervous, and knowing that Boston's like such a prestigious race with so much history and so many quirks, I was like, I want to make the most of everything. I want to make the most of the weird bus journey to the start on the school bus and the weird route. And I met so many people out there who'd done Boston like 10 times, 12 times. I was like, tell me everything you need to know. And I was kind of like almost overwhelming myself with the excitement and adrenaline of it. And then you set off and you're trying to take it in, you're trying to hit your pace. it's really hot and your legs hurt already, and it's it's quite an overwhelming experience, and amazing. Like, I wouldn't take, wouldn't change it for the world, but it was when you finish, you're like, physically my legs were like, no, I'm quite happy not to run for a few days. But then I was like, I actually need some time to just sort of comprehend it. And it's like, it wasn't my first marathon, but I think like for every experience, it's such an effort. And I think it's a massive physical effort, but I find like when I run a marathon, I definitely feel like 50% of it, it's me telling my brain to keep going. And it's actually mentally exhausting.
Yeah.
And you do need time to sort of like be proud of what you've done, whether you've hit your goal or not, because you've still, achieved or attempted a distance and a race and put yourself through it. But I'll be honest, like I finished and I was like, no, I'm absolutely done. And
I'm done with running.
And then
I'm
a few
tired.
hours later, when I was sat at the pub and starting to talk about races, I was like, oh, maybe. So I'm quite a goal-driven person, and I like having something to work towards. So I think it kind of suits my personality to have something almost lined up.
Yeah.
So I can sort of see that point as well, and I do get the FOMO.
This is the Runner's World podcast.
I was going to ask, because your year last year was quite packed.
Yeah, it was. The back end of it was quite busy.
Like, and you've done quite a lot of racing in quite a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I want to so you're probably the prime example of perhaps jumping
jumping a bit too soon.
You're jumping quite quickly into, because you did New York. No, sorry, you did. What was before New York?
So I did Chicago.
That was it.
At the start of near the start of October, and then 4 or 5 weeks later did New York Marathon. And actually, as I was running Chicago, because I knew I was doing both of them for some sort of crazy reason, halfway through Chicago, I was actually thinking, I can't believe I've actually got to do this again in a month. And I just was like, what have you done? And like, I'm proud of what I did, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. And I had a very good training plan to sort of see me through. But then I think it's just coming to terms with the fact that you can't be race fit throughout the year. Yeah. And sometimes, I find it, sometimes it can be quite hard to step back and be like, I'm gonna get through. I'm just gonna run for
sort of maintain.
I'm just gonna maintain. I'm gonna run because I enjoy it and because I love it. Because otherwise you are likely to get injured. And at the end of last year, I picked up a niggle. I was like, what? I'm not even training for anything anymore. But I think that's because I got back to running and things probably too soon. Yeah. And my body was like, no, hold on a minute. Like, you've done more than you think you have. Yeah. Just chill out. And so I think that's why it's quite important for people to just chill out a bit.
Yeah. I want to talk about, have you ever done a race that's gone badly? Because I think this is where bad decisions happen. We're like, the race we're talking about, both of you, I think were really successful. But when a marathon or a race hasn't gone the way it had, I've had this before. Where I did London a couple of years in a row, and I got slower by a minute, and I just couldn't believe it. I was like, I was furious with myself, and runs after that, I was like, almost trying to punish myself on the run. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like, you just lacking mental strength. We need to work on that right now. And this is like kind of 4 days afterwards or 5 days afterwards. And I think lots of people will have run a marathon in spring and it won't have gone to plan. Yeah. And I worry that's maybe when you start going, well, I need to do another marathon, or like, I just didn't train hard.
I'm going to waste my training.
It's that. I think I did London last year in April and it didn't go to plan, threw up halfway through, didn't get the time that I wanted. And then I actually ended up, I made a big song and dance. I wasn't doing another marathon that year and ended up not doing that. But I ended up running a few more races that year, but none of them I raced. And I haven't actually raced a marathon since I did London last year. And I think it's because I've almost gone, okay, I'd still like to do that distance because I enjoy long distance running, but it's almost like reframing your goal now of I'm giving myself a bit of time off away from this time pressured goal and having fun, concentrating on other things and I guess experiences as well, especially if you go and do an abroad marathon. It's quite exciting. So there's other things to appreciate about it other than I'm gunning for this time.
Yeah, totally.
So it's kind of been nice. And I'm not racing until Berlin in September. So I'll have had, over a year, 2 years off from properly racing.
Yeah.
which
But some
again
really
is
rich
quite
running
nice.
experiences.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think there's that on that loss of like, there's a lot of people have worked super hard to get race day fit. And as I said, like, you're not going to lose any of your fitness within the 2 weeks of not doing any running. But when they come back to running, most people will, there's a temptation certainly to kind of continue the volume.
Yeah, okay.
Like your training load was X, Y, and Z in those weeks, and you kind of feel like, wow, I don't want to lose all of that, so I'm going to continue at that level. And that's when they like, you can overdo it with injuries, or you just sort of like actually just get completely like burnt out with running because you're doing all the volume but no structure. Training allows you with a plan to be very like formulated and it kind of task driven, whereas just I must run another 10 kilometers today because I can. It's that sort of like, well, yeah, but is it fun? Are you enjoying it? Are you doing it too fast? Like, is it easy? Are you running slowly?
Is it purposeful?
Yeah. But I'm hesitant to always say that running has to have a purpose beyond just getting out and doing it. So then people always go, oh, they're junk miles. I hate that. Like, no, it's not. If you're getting out and having a run and you're enjoying it and it's nice and whatever, it's not junk, is it? It's great. Like, there's sort of mildly elite terminology with running which can be a bit detrimental with like everything's a waste. Like, if you've just done a race and you spend the next 6 months going running 3 times a week for the sake of going running 3 times a week, fantastic. That is, I think, re-establishing a great relationship with running.
Yeah, I think that's so true. When a race doesn't go your way, you've probably said it before, but it's not a big failure that it hasn't gone your way, because you learn something from it. Okay, why did it not go my way? And then you come back next time and you kind of want it more. I almost say everyone needs those races that don't go to plan, because
I agree,
you just get more from it.
Yeah, you learn more, don't you? You learn more. Let's talk about what things people could do other than a marathon then. So they've done the marathon.
Yes.
The summer's come in.
Yep.
And I think it is a time to experiment.
Get shredded for the beach.
Get shredded for Love Island. I think that I'm going to put a little vote in the box for getting faster over shorter distances.
I mean, this is a classic.
It's a classic summer
thing.
thing.
I think it's a classic big after a big. So obviously this is we're assuming that everyone's big race is a marathon. So say everyone's been training and their last race was a 5K. Well, then maybe the mile is your thing.
I'm actually talking maybe the mile.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe always that run your best mile.
There was always that thing of you've now gone and got super fit aerobic capacity from the endurance side of life.
Yeah.
So you're at you're fit. So but why not then like push that threshold and get a 5K PB?
Yeah.
With probably after your very good rest, start like a 6-8 week little 5K plan.
Give yourself a month off and then have a go at because the good thing about 5K is you can have multiple goes at it.
Yes.
Parkruns around now, so like you can try it every weekend if you want. It does actually have much more. If say you were interested in half marathons or marathons, actually getting your 5K or 10K time down is really relevant, and probably some people don't realise how much that will translate to a good marathon time. And the training's pretty different, particularly if you're talking about 5K or a mile. It's very different training than you would have done for your marathon. So I quite
definitely.
like
You also, although for something like a half marathon, you probably still are doing long runs. If time has been something that I guess has been very consuming in your training, it's nice to do a shorter distance and just free up your weekend, especially when the weather is nicer and you're doing more with friends.
Totally.
And it's just better to have less commitment in your life, I think.
You do all your training in an hour.
Yeah.
Like you're done. And that's a long session for a 5K.
Oh, it's massive. And if you want to do the mile, then there's the Westminster Mile, isn't there? That's the sort of classic one in September. Good timing, I think. You could set a 5K and a mile PB in that time.
Easily.
So, over to you, Ben. Give us a goal.
Mine's just more of if you've been running particularly like a road marathon, mine is get yourself out on the trails. Summer is here or coming. The trails will be drying out. So you don't have to, if you're not like a muddy person, you don't have to face all of that, like winter slop. And you can just get out and change a surface, change of environment, which is massive.
Change mentality, I think, on the trail as well.
Yeah, and also like, exactly, and the mentality of the training, the racing is quite different. I think with trail racing, it's not necessarily the metric that time isn't always a metric that people are like big into altitude or like whatever distance covered. It doesn't matter how slow it was, but I did 1,000 meters. It's like it's much more. It's just a different scope of like what's a good run.
Yeah, for sure.
But for me, I think it's just more like if you don't do any trail running, it's quite good to be a bit of a beginner again, because you're like, there's a lot of skill acquisition with routes and surface and judging pace on loose, you know, like, I can smash up a road hill, whatever, but actually like an uneven, gritty climb, like that's a totally different thing. And I think that's just a nice thing to really focus on when you've been doing a lot of like particularly road running, just to mix up with and then get out into nature a bit.
I love that.
So I would say cross training is always important, but I would say, you know, try out, especially with the summer, try out different sports, different cross training, you know, get on the bike, go swimming, play some tennis, play football. You just try something different. A lot of sports still encompass running, so you're still training in a sense, but just mix it up a bit, because I find sometimes, well, with like marathon training or any sort of running training, it is running.
It's a lot of one
and
thing.
a lot of the time it is just by yourself as well. So I think just sort of finding alternative activities to like supplement your running as well adds a bit of variety and interest as well. So
absence makes the heart grow fonder.
It really does,
right? And that's, with running is a big one.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I want to try a bit more tennis, like get a bit of explosive speed, because I don't do that.
Smash that
and it
backhand.
might be a way of doing some interval training without realising.
Yeah.
Tricking yourself into
Tricking myself into reps on a different surface.
5-day ultra.
Yeah, I'd really recommend a 5-day ultra. I'm going to retweet Ben and say, ultra running, trail running.
Yeah.
I do think it's very, I don't know, the people who do it. I've been to Love Trails, which is in July, for the past 2 years. And just the people there are so lovely. It's kind of like trail runners are like a different breed. It's just so inclusive. You just forget all about speed, because when you're doing so many road races, and I think that was me for quite a few years, just so focused, every goal was like time. And I think doing more trail has really sort of taken my mind off of that now. And it's kind of fun to be like, I'm going to do that distance, or get to explore that area of the UK or abroad just on the trail, and just not have to think about it. So I'm a big trail advocate now, and it took me a little while to get into it. I'd say for about a year, I kind of was very anti-trail, didn't really enjoy it.
That's interesting, okay.
And I've eased into it now, and I am a full-on trail convert.
Quality.
Yeah.
There you go.
What was it that you kind of like?
I think it's ego, and I think a lot of road runners will find that when they transition to the trail, is that you're constantly checking your watch, and you're sort of like, oh, my pace isn't very good here. You just need to abandon all of that. You're on the trail, nothing is the same. And like you said, it's all the technicalities of it. Like, I've learned that I'm not very good on declines, and I need to get better at that.
Okay.
And it's just so many more skills, I think. And I also think trail running then converts really well to the road. Like, I did a half marathon a couple of weeks ago, and I think off the back of my ultra, found it a lot easier, because the hills that you're then tackling aren't hills, not when you're used to doing trails.
Yeah.
And it's things like that I think, actually, like Rachel said, doing loads of different sports is a better idea than just going road.
Yeah, I totally agree.
What about you?
I was talking about getting faster.
Oh yeah.
So I think. I mean, I don't want to say trail again because that's boring, but it's not boring.
Trail again.
It's just repetitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had a go at something that was a little bit like, I guess a bit left field. So I got into a bit of swim running.
Yeah, you did.
Which was obviously like triathlon without the bike. So I did a couple of those. I mean, summer's great for that kind of stuff, but there's probably the equivalent of those things that are a little bit more adventure-y, or creative ways to get running into something. Tick in the box also for like fast packing. Like I like hiking, and I think that can be like, summer's getting pretty nice now, so like doing a kind of long walk, run, hike somewhere in Britain would be great.
Yeah, I'd recommend. I just went on a hiking holiday as well last week, and again, it's like my heart rate was still really high. It was almost like I was running because of all the climbing. And again, that's just another dimension to your fitness, your outdoors. Yeah,
sounds good. Hey, listeners, let us know what any great alternative goals you've come up with. Let us know at podcast@runnersworld.co.uk.
Or just sign up for a marathon straight away.
Where would you do that, Ben?
What, if I'd just done London?
If you were looking for some new races, where would you go?
Well, I'd go to the website, runnersworld.com/UK. We've got an events listing page.
Oh, great.
Check that out in partnership with Find a Race. and they literally will find you a race. So that's good.
They're well named, aren't they?
Yeah, aren't they just?
Yeah.
Don't know. I don't know where I'd go and look, but I mean, it's not a summer thing, is it? But you'd sign up for something in autumn. You know, get something in the bank. It's still got plenty of time off. If you've had a good, you know, spring marathon, an autumn marathon is, you know, there's some months ahead.
There's still time.
There's still time. So yeah.
Well, I think that brings us to the end of this week's Runners World podcast. A huge thanks to our expert guests, Rachel Boswell and Ali Ball, and to you, of course, for listening.
Thanks, everyone. You can subscribe to the magazine. Head on to the internet and Google Runners World UK subscription. You'll get sent to a magazine website, probably belonging to Hearst Magazine, hopefully belonging to Hearst Magazines. Everyone else is a fraudulent magazine website. Don't sign up for those. You can get a new subscriber offer if you haven't subscribed already. It's a very good offer. Don't know what it is. Google it. But it's good. And then you get 12 issues of Runners World to your front door or an address of your choice every single month. So that's really, really good. There are 12 months in a year. I had to work that out. Thank you for listening. You'll hear from us next week.